Now, tonight on the show, we are taking you across the world to show you how global warming isn't an academic issue anymore. It affects people like you and me. It is causing snowfall in tropical states and making cities in the southern hemisphere swelter at 80-year highs. We're starting with the US. One of the strongest winter storms on the east coast in the USA in modern history has pummeled cities with snow and sleet. 9 lives have been lost due to sub-zero temperatures, forcing schools and businesses to close while grounding thousands of flights the past week. The snowstorm, bomb cyclone with frigid temperatures, snow and ice with a wind chill close to -100 lashed at New Hampshire's Mount Washington. Newly released videos give a glimpse of the dramatic and severe weather recorded over the past 2 days, turning this into the second coldest place on Earth. In fact, snow has meant widespread cancellations of travel plans for those flying out of New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. The year couldn't have begun on a more challenging note. First, the winter storm cancelled and delayed hundreds of flights, then flooding from a water main break forced the temporary suspension of more flights. Water poured from the ceiling onto a check-in counter and covered large areas of the floor of Terminal 4. Down south, Winter Storm Grayson brought snow to parts of Florida, Georgia and South Carolina last week, taking everyone by surprise. Florida saw snowfall for the first time in 30 years. In a rare sight, snow flurries were spotted all across the capital, Tallahassee, and surrounding areas. In fact, a resident of Florida received a chilly surprise last week when he went to check on his outdoor pool. This is what it looked like. The rare sub-zero temperatures caused his swimming pool to freeze solid.
Go.
Well, that's not all. It was also raining iguanas in Florida. Videos uploaded on social media showed residents encountering scores of frozen reptiles. The iguanas were dropping out of trees like overripe mangoes, some said. Thankfully, they're not dead. Green iguanas, like all reptiles, are cold-blooded animals, as you would know. So when the temperature falls to freezing levels, they become immobile. They're expected to come back to life once the temperatures rise again.
Oh my. Let's see if he starts moving. Yeah, this guy's got some life in him, I think.
Hundreds of sea turtles are also washing up on the shores of Florida due to what's called cold stunning. And what does that mean? It's an ecological phenomenon caused by cold water temperatures. Wildlife officials say that they've rescued more than 200 stunned sea turtles from freezing water.
So banks of St. Joe Bay here, and what's happened is the water has dipped down below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and whenever the water gets that cold...
2 sharks were also found stranded off the Massachusetts coast. The Atlantic White Shark Conservatory said that they likely died because of what they call a cold shock. The deep freeze has also turned the Niagara Falls into an icy winter wonderland, and despite the frigid temperatures, it's drawing tourists. The massive icicles and miniature glaciers forming on and below this waterfall has made an awe-inspiring sight. Moving eastwards, a massive snowstorm in Spain trapped thousands of people in their cars overnight on a highway, prompting a military response over the weekend. The Spanish army deployed hundreds of soldiers to help rescue more than 3,500 motorists stranded in their cars overnight in Castile, Leon and parts of Madrid. By mid-morning, conditions had improved, making it easier for snowplows and emergency workers to reach stranded drivers. Members of the Red Cross handed out hot drinks and blankets and high-energy food. And in India, New Delhi woke up to another morning of intense cold and reduced visibility, with dense fog shrouding the national capital as the mercury plummeted to a bone-chilling 6 degrees Celsius. Homeless people and daily wagers such as rickshaw pullers and auto drivers burnt garbage on the roadside and sipped on hot tea to stay warm. Operations at the railway station were hit due to poor visibility. 18 trains were cancelled, 50 rescheduled and 8 were running late last we checked. Families huddled together under blankets as they waited for their trains. Passengers were also stranded at the airport as low visibility on the tarmac affected flight operations in North India. In contrast, look at what happened in Australia. It's sweating and how? It's summer in the southern hemisphere and a remarkably hot one this time. Dangerous heat is roasting parts of Australia with temperatures that haven't been seen in decades. It is so hot that part of a freeway in Victoria on the southeastern coast was melting, as they put it. This is the hottest that Sydney has been in more than 80 years. Temperature in the city hit a high of 47.3 degrees Celsius, which was just shy of the record all-time high of 47.8 degrees, which was set way back in 1939.
It's refreshing. Well, in the boat today, it's a bit hot, but when you go in the water, it's worth it.
I'm Scottish, so I'm on fire. Yeah, it's pretty warm today. I don't know, it's probably about 30, 33, 34 at least just now, and I think it's going to hit about 40.
It's very hot already, exhausted, but it's good to get it over and done with and then head to the beach after.
It was hot, I can say the least. I'm sweating, my bridesmaids are sweating. The wind was not too bad around here, but otherwise it was scorching hot.
Well, to get respite from the heat, most people headed to the beach or managed to find water in swimming pools made out of shipping containers set up in Sydney's Hyde Park. Thousands were left without power and total fire bans were put in place. The extreme heat caused power outages for a few businesses. ATM machines and traffic lights stopped working. Residents were urged to drink extra water and limit their time outdoors. A French tourist even had to call for help after suffering a heat stroke while hiking in the Blue Mountains.
3, 2, go for it.
So what should we do? Much has been said about why government should invest in arresting climate change. Is it worth the money is the question. Climate change skeptics and politicians have often argued that there is a huge cost to saving this planet. But you don't have to be a scientist or a mathematical genius to bust this argument. All you have to do is look at the numbers we are now showing you. The United States government has spent more than $350 billion in the past decade in response to extreme weather conditions and fire events. In other words, $350 billion is the kind of money that has been spent to deal with the fallout of climate change. In contrast, what were they being asked to contribute to fight climate change? $3 billion. $350 billion versus $3 billion. If you break it down further, it comes to $10 per American citizen. That's all they were being asked to pay to fight global warming. It defies logic, but the US government under Donald Trump has refused to contribute to the Green Climate Fund, which was set up after the Paris Climate Accords. So it boils down to this, and I'm repeating, America is paying loads of money to deal with the aftermath of hurricanes and freak weather, but it will not invest a fraction of that amount to ensure that they're not hit by the fury of nature. The government is spending $180 billion, I'm talking about the US government still, $180 billion for the recovery efforts after Hurricane Harvey in Texas. According to a report in The Guardian, Americans could end up paying up to $300 billion to restore the damage from Hurricane Irma. If you broaden the canvas and look at the world, governments have to spend upwards of $100 billion annually to tackle the effects of climate change, not to mention the cost of lives lost. In 2013, for instance, Typhoon Haiyan took 6,000 lives in the Philippines. It was still hesitant to come and join the climate accord. Ultimately, Manila did decide to ratify that accord in March last year. The United Kingdom is another example. It stands by the Paris Accord. Sure enough, it ended up suffering an economic loss of more than $1 billion. The UK will contribute $1.2 billion to save the climate annually. Religious minorities, especially the Christian community, are often targeted by terrorists in Pakistan. The state discriminates against them through laws, and society does not treat them as equals. WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui visited the country's largest Christian community in Johannabad near Lahore to find out how they live at a time when their churches are under attack. A recent suicide bombing of a church in Quetta killed 9 Christians. More in this exclusive report from Lahore City.
In this church on the outskirts of Lahore city, Christians gather for morning prayers. But before they enter the premises, they have to undergo a security check. Police are also on standby.
क्रिश्चियन कम्युनिटी के लिहाज से हमारे ये है कि बस दहशतगर्दी का बहुत है, जो ये कुछ भी नहीं देख रहे आजकल। ये मैं तो ये कह रही, इसलिए हमारे लड़के वॉलंटियर खड़े होते हैं। हमारी टीम में तकरीबन 30 से 35 लड़के हैं जो वॉलंटियर करते हैं सिक्योरिटी, ठीक है। लेकिन और उसके साथ हमारी लेडीज़ भी 20 से 25 लेडीज़ हैं जो वॉलंटियर खड़ी होती हैं सिक्योरिटी, हमारे साथ शाना बिशाना खड़ी होती हैं। हाई अलर्ट है, चर्च को ज़्यादा अटैक किया जा रहा है। अभी ये पिछले दिनों कोयटा में उन्होंने चर्च को कर दिया था अटैक। अभी उसके पहले 15 मार्च को इधर जहानाबाद में किया। फिर काफ़ी ज़्यादा इस वजह से हालात ज़्यादा टफ हैं, इसलिए हम वॉलंटियर खड़े हुए हैं और अपने चर्चेज़ की हिफाजत के लिए खड़े हुए हैं।
This church was attacked in 2015 when suicide bombers tried to force their way into it and another one nearby. Today, those who are attending the prayers feel safer.
कुछ जब पहले दहशतगर्दी नहीं थी, जब हुई है तो उसके बाद काफ़ी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पंजाब ने हमारी सिक्योरिटी अप्रूव की है और हमारे अपने जो सिक्योरिटी के मेंबरान हैं वो भी बड़े अलर्ट रहते हैं और खुदा उनका शुक्र है कि उनमें बहुत हिम्मत है।
खुदा उनको हिम्मत ताकत दे और जज्बा पैदा करे चर्च जाने का। डर खौफ रखने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं, हम नहीं डरते।
खुदा ना करे कोई ऐसा वाक़या हो, लेकिन ये हुकूमत पंजाब ने और पुलिस सिक्योरिटी ने काफ़ी अच्छा इंतज़ाम किया कि ऐसा वाक़या ना हो। तो बाकी दुश्मन का तो कोई एतबार नहीं है कि वो कहाँ पे कोई अटैक कर दे।
Some, however, feel that there is no future for religious minorities in Pakistan and it is best to leave the country.
वो इसी वजह से डर जा रहे हैं कि डर है इधर कि दहशतगर्द इधर बहुत है जी। क्रिश्चियनों के चर्चों में बम धमाका हो जाता है।
गुस्सा भी आता है, गम भी होता है कि इनको ऐसे नहीं करना चाहिए। हमारे त्यौहार जो है अच्छे तरीके से गुजरने चाहिए जी, अच्छे कुछ सलीबी से मसन का अमान से मसन के रहना चाहिए सबको।
Father Francis, who was also present at the church when the bombing happened, emphasizes interfaith harmony. Even after the latest attack in December 2017 on a church in Quetta, he feels that love can unite everyone.
वो भी हमारे भाई हैं दहशतगर्द, खैर उनकी रहनुमाई गलत हुई, उन्हें किसी ने गलत गाइड किया कि हम इंसानियत के दुश्मन जो हो जाएं उनको ज़रूरत है तरबियत की और खुदा चाहता है कि हम एक दूसरे की मदद करें। जिस तरह कोयटा के जो वाक़या हुआ है इसके बाद और उसके बाद हम मसीहों ने तो हमें यही पैगाम दिया, ये क्रिसमस का मौसम है, यीशु मसीह ने सबको प्यार का दावत दी है, तो कोई बात नहीं, हम उन्होंने कहा है कि अपने दुश्मनों के लिए दुआ करो, तो हम उनके लिए दुआ करते हैं।
One of the victims of the suicide bombing was Akash. He stopped the bomber from entering the church. Today, in a tribute to his sacrifice, this memorial has been built. His parents continue to mourn their loss.
15 मार्च को जब एक दहशतगर्द आया दरवाजे पर, तो उसने उससे एक अच्छी कुश्ती लड़ी और एक अच्छी और मिसाली कुर्बानी पेश की। बेहद याद आती है, जब भी याद आती है आंखें बंद करते हैं तो जैसे हमारे सामने खड़ा है, हमसे बातचीत कर रहा है।
मैं उसे मना करती थी तो उसको वो कहता था कि माँ खुदावन की मर्ज़ी है। मैं कहती थी नहीं, मुझे डर लगता है। जगह जगह ब्लास्ट होते हैं तो चर्चों में होते हैं, स्कूलों में। कहता है माँ खुदावन की मर्ज़ी है, डरना नहीं चाहिए। हम तो जाना चाहते हैं कि चलो इस मुल्क से निकल जाएं, क्योंकि हमारा बच्चा एक चला गया है तो बाकियों की भी हमें खौफ है कि ऐसा ना कभी हो जाए कि खुदा ना करे कि हम दूसरा किसी को खो दें। दूसरा अभी खड़ा है इधर, अभी भी गया हुआ है अरसलान, उससे छोटा जो है।
Activists like Kashif Nawab feel that threats are not just from militants. Christians are being deprived of their livelihoods, even in neighborhoods like Yohanabad, considered to be the largest Christian settlement in South Asia.
उनके जो अपने एरियाज़ हैं, जब लाइक योहानाबाद या भागुन इस तरह के टाउन्स हैं, वहाँ पर भी जो इस तरह के बिजनेस है वो अगर सारे मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी ले लेगी तो फिर मैं समझता हूँ कि ये उनके साथ ज़्यादती होगी कि उनको मौका नहीं मिलेगा, अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिलेगी, वो बिजनेस कर सके, वो काम कर सके। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि ये जो अपॉर्चुनिटी, इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी और इक्वल राइट्स मिलने चाहिए, ये हम सब की जिम्मेदारी है एज पाकिस्तानी शहरी। मसीहों के भी उतने हैं, हिंदुओं के भी उतने हैं, मुसलमानों के भी उतने हैं। तो हम समझते हैं कि ये इक्वल राइट्स और इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी जो है इसको इंश्योर करना स्टेट की जिम्मेदारी है। एक ऐसी सोच है जो ये समझती है कि पाकिस्तान सिर्फ इस्लाम के नाम पे बना, ये मुसलमानों के लिए बना है। तो हम समझते हैं कि हमें लोगों के एटीट्यूड और बिहेवियर को चेंज करने की ज़रूरत है। जहाँ पे ये सोच पाई जाती है कि सिर्फ ये मुसलमानों के लिए है, हम समझते हैं कि ये तमाम पाकिस्तानियों के लिए है, वो किसी भी रंग मजहब से अकीदे से तल्लुक़ रखता हो, क्योंकि जब कायदे पाकिस्तान ने ये बात कह दी थी तो फिर हम समझते हैं कि हमें उसको बे करने की ज़रूरत है, हमें उस वाले मिशन को, उस वाले विजन को आगे लेके चलने की ज़रूरत है, ताकि हम पाकिस्तान को जिना का पाकिस्तान बना सकें।
In its recent 2017 report, Human Rights Watch has said that in Pakistan, religious minorities continue to face violent attacks, insecurity and persecution, with the government failing to provide adequate protection and hold perpetrators accountable.
Although it's a festive season for the Christian community, the celebrations are overshadowed by security concerns given the threat to this religious minority. This is Taha Siddiqui with cameraman Rao Bilal reporting for WION from Lahore.
Let's turn to Iran. The fire and fury in the US over Iran is not visible in the European Union, which appears keen to better understanding how President Rouhani is handling the situation on the ground. German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel told the media there, and I'm quoting, "Together with the European Union's foreign policy chief, we agreed to invite the Iranian foreign minister, if possible, next week." Javed Zarif, who is the Iranian foreign minister, is yet to respond, but the invitation underscored that the European Union and its leaders tend to be more open for dialogue and less inclined to point the finger. US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson went public with his disappointment. He said, and I'm quoting again, "I was disappointed that the EU had not taken a more definitive stance in supporting those voices in the country that are calling for reforms." In Tehran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard announced that it had helped crush the anti-government protests, blaming them on foreign instigators, namely the US, Britain, Israel, Saudi Arabia, militants and monarchists, as they put it. Foreign Minister of the country added his voice to the claims of foreign interference, and he said, and I'm quoting again, "No country can create a secure environment for itself at the expense of creating insecurity among its neighbors." The CIA chief, Mike Pompeo, has said that the administration was solidly behind the protesters while rejecting Tehran's claims that Washington was inciting the mobs on the streets. It appears that what began as a subtle effort by Iran's hardliners to undercut the moderate president of the country, Mr. Rouhani, through street protests over inflation has now backfired and gone out of control. There were currently no reports of any new protests, but the fate of hundreds of jailed protesters remains unknown. And among those behind bars could be the former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Reports say that he was arrested in the city of Shiraz for fueling protests. WION's Daniele Pagani reports.
The current wave of protests in Iran is the greatest challenge the country faces since the Green Movement in 2009. Back then, people all over Iran had protested against electoral irregularities leading to the victory of Iran's former president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And as it was in 2009, Ahmadinejad is still making headlines today. The Saudi pan-Arab TV channel Al Arabiya announced on Sunday that Iranian authorities have arrested Mr. Ahmadinejad for fueling the current protest and inciting violence. But the former president's arrest still stands unconfirmed, with Ahmadinejad's son denying that his father is in custody. On the other hand, there is no official denial from either Mr. Ahmadinejad or his team. What seems to have led to Mr. Ahmadinejad's arrest are comments he reportedly made during some rallies. He accused the current Iranian president Hassan Rouhani and his government of mismanagement and of, quote, believing that they own the land and that the people are an ignorant society, end quote. Ahmadinejad has been a fierce opponent of President Rouhani, and the protests may have served his purpose of undermining the president's authority well. The former president is not the only high-profile politician to be placed under arrest. Former Iranian Prime Minister Mir Hossein Mousavi is also reported to be under house arrest for the same reason. Mousavi was one of the fiercest opponents of Ahmadinejad in 2009 when election took place, and it was in solidarity with him that demonstrators had taken to the streets. The new wave of protest in Iran is sweeping mainly through area far from the capital Tehran, and the main grievance is the moribund state of Iran's economy. Above all, it is young working-class people who are frustrated by a lack of jobs and skyrocketing prices. But obviously, any protest is useful, and the current ones have emboldened all political rivals to capitalize on them and try to re-enter the arena of mainstream politics. Bureau Report, WION.
There are no references to India or Pakistan, but there are plenty of startling revelations about China in that book. So what did the former presidential advisor Steve Bannon tell the author about President Trump's utterances on relations between the US and China? Let's take a look. Quoting Steve Bannon, the author discloses that China and not erstwhile enemy Moscow is reportedly the country Mr. Trump views as the first front in a new Cold War. The president's former advisor reportedly also compared China to Nazi Germany. Like the Germans, the Chinese are the most rational people in the world until they're not, and they're going to flip like Germany in the 30s. Mr. Bannon reportedly added that if and when that happens, one won't be able to put the genie back in the bottle. President Trump reportedly blamed hacked accounts upon China and his weak predecessors in the US government. And according to this author, the president was convinced that China and other countries will respect the United States more under his leadership. The author also writes that the president's former advisor, Steve Bannon, said that, quote-unquote, China was the linchpin of Trumpism and the United States would have to launch a commercial, trade, cultural and diplomatic war against China. And since we believe in fairness and presenting both sides of the story, we must put out for you what Donald Trump's review of this book is. And this is what it is. And I'm reading out of, well, his tweet. Michael Wolff is a total loser, he says, who made up stories in order to sell this really boring and untruthful book. He used sloppy Steve Bannon, who cried when he got fired and begged for his job. Now sloppy Steve has been dumped like a dog by almost everyone. Too bad. That's Donald Trump for you. He's also delayed the much-awaited media awards that he was going to hand out, but there was another set of awards that were given today, the Golden Globes. Oprah Winfrey's powerful speech at that event has stirred massive speculation that the media magnate might make a run for the White House in 2020. Listen into an excerpt from the speech that stole the show at the Golden Globes.
So I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again.